have a little bit better feel. But Tracy Cobb started Cobb CPA in 1996 to focus on small to mid-sized businesses and their owners. Cobb CPA offers solutions that allow owners and their team members to grow their business with confidence. This includes tax planning and prep, QuickBooks training and support, and business development, including CFO coaching. Their diagnostic tools and planning day workshops can help teams jumpstart their growth by assessing where a team is and providing creative strategies for addressing the current economy and goals. So I'm really excited. So Tracy's really just not a CPA firm. He has a lot of things that he can provide. And one of those almost goes more towards this business strategy and business, if we call it coaching, where it's how to develop and grow your business. So I'm really excited to have Tracy with us. We're going to go over 6 points that he has seen be very effective on how people can increase the value of their business. Before we jump into all that, we're going to start with our lovely disclaimer. Just so you know, myself as a lawyer, Tracy as a CPA, the things that we provide here to you today are not under any sort of client relationship, either attorney-client or accountant-client. If you have direct questions or facts that need to be addressed by either one of us, please reach out. We'd love to walk you through those scenarios and make sure that you're getting taken care of. One thing that I like to do on these webinars is just to jump into a couple of legal things that are pretty recent. One of those, if you're a football fan, obviously the Super Bowl was Sunday, but one of the things that happened recently was the Washington football team changed their name to the Washington Commanders. And one of the things that we have a trademark person on our team, and it always seems so interesting when you see new designs or new names for companies. It always seems so simple. But really on the back end, there's a huge push of both legal and design work. I don't do the design, but we do the legal on the trademark side. And one of the things we looked at was, I wonder what trademarks they went ahead and acquired for this Washington Commanders name. Anybody can do a trademark search on the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office. I just pulled up a couple of things that showed they have several trademarks already registered. And things as simple as the clothing and footwear, as you can see on this one that I actually pulled up, the goods and services that are trademarked. Clothing, footwear, headwear, caps, hats, visors, headbands, earmuffs, wristbands, tops, t-shirts. So it's interesting to think about when you're getting your products, lined up to be sold or to have that name on them. Yep, you should secure those with a trademark to make sure, one, you're not infringing on somebody else's rights, and two, to protect your rights over all else's. So that's fun. The other thing is we help businesses, and I know Tracy does as well, that span across multiple states. One of the states that we've helped many business owners move into or be part of is in Colorado. Colorado's employment and business laws are shifting and have shifted over the past couple of years to be, I wouldn't say more like California, but more towards that direction. And this is one of those that actually I've never seen this, but there's a shift of the non-compete law violations. So Colorado has a very limited non-compete allowance for employers to enforce against employees. And there's 4 exceptions where you can actually have one. They're listed here. And remember, a non-compete or non-solicit is to protect a business owner's right to not have an employee go and start a business or to solicit clients that they might have acquired under that other business and then move them out of that business. So in the long or short, however you want to say it, what happened in Colorado this last legislative session is if an employer or a company tries to enforce a non-compete agreement or non-solicitation agreement that is unenforceable, it's actually a criminal violation. It goes to a Class 2 misdemeanor. And again, I have not seen this in any of the states that we've been in. It's not uncommon for non-competes and non-solicits to be held unenforceable in civil court, meaning even if you have a non-compete, sometimes the courts say, no, we're not going to apply it. But the Colorado legislature went one step further and said, not only are we going to allow the judge to say, no, it's not enforceable, but now you as the employer individually might be criminally held liable as a Class 2 misdemeanor. So something to watch, think about it. It goes effective March 1st. So if you're in Colorado, this is something you want to be aware of and make sure, one, you don't have these kind of non-enforceable non-compete agreements, and two, for sure you don't go try to enforce them because it could really open up a can of worms. So we're going to jump into the reason we're here today. Tracy's experience has lent him to having great success in helping people grow their businesses, and he's outlined 6 steps to increase your business's value. I'm going to run through those real quick here, and then I'm really going to open it up to Tracy to share a little bit more about himself and also to share on each of these items. We also get to have a lucky opportunity here, some scenarios where we jump into scenarios and work through those together to show you how these steps actually work in application. So the 6 steps are creating a recurring revenue stream, systematizing your process, decoupling yourself from the business, focusing on brand loyalty and reputation, increasing profitability and cash flow, and then maintaining clear, concise, and accurate financials. All right, Tracy, I'm going to open it up to you. Do you want to jump into this first one, or do you want to start just kind of more generally first?
Let's just jump right into it. Let's go to the next slide. That's great.
Awesome. All right.
We got a lot to cover. Thanks, Tim. Appreciate the intro. A lot of good information about Colorado. I didn't realize that was happening over there.
Yeah, crazy.
Yeah, crazy. I like that. I liked on the trademark too for the Washington Commanders, the last 3 items that were on your list. I think it was underwear, swimwear, and then what was the final? Rompers. So rompers. I guess that's like diaper wear or something for kids. Is that what that is? I'm not sure.
I'm not sure, but yeah, that's great.
So we're talking, first slide is really talking about creating recurring revenue streams. And what you're looking for there is a reliable and constant, consistent stream of cash flow coming into your business. It's going to make your business much more valuable for somebody that either wants to pick it up or in the future, and just makes your life easier too, because you know what your revenue is going to be, or you can at least predict it a lot easier than having these one-offs show up at your doorstep once in a while, and having to work through those. And you're either feast or famine, sort of a scenario that happens in a lot of small businesses.
Yeah.
So, the first thing we take a look at is just really analyzing the business's products and what their services are, having them go through that scenario and seeing where they're making their money, where they're not, where they want to spend most of their time, what they're really good at. And then trying to productize those businesses and being able to make them into products that they can charge a revenue stream for every month, and create great value for their customers or clients too. I mean, that's the big part of it, is understanding what they need, their businesses, their business customers need, or if it's a B2C, what their retail customers need.
Yeah.
And I think the third thing that's on there is analyzing the competition's offering, just to know what everybody else is doing and how you can be different. We'll talk a little bit more about that throughout the presentation today. But having something that's different is really important.
No, that's great.
Yeah,
that's awesome. And a lot of times we hear these concepts, or this concept specifically, create recurring revenue streams, and I think everybody wants it, right? I think if you asked every business owner, hey, if you could create a recurring revenue stream, would you do it? The next step is actually doing it. And that's where I think a lot of times you come in, Tracy, is on this analysis, reviewing a business product, reviewing the business services, and analyzing competition offerings. You actually can come in and help create that opportunity, or know people that can, to make sure that actually comes to fruition, because that's a big part of running a business and being successful.
Yeah, I think you can see it, and we see it every day. I'm sure. Has anybody bought anything on Amazon lately? Maybe. You buy shampoo, or you buy dog food or anything like that that's a consumable, consumable, and you're offered to do a regular subscription for that particular item. So that's how they're trying to do that. And you can do it with services too. And I think in the scenario that you provided to kind of walk through, that'll point that out. But you're seeing it everywhere. And that's because businesses are so much more valuable if you can create a consistent revenue stream. That's what your investor wants, your private equity firm, or whoever's going to be purchasing your business. Is really looking for predictable revenue, so that way they can monetize that and support the purchase price that you're asking.
Yeah, maybe before we jump into the scenario, if I can ask that first question.
Sure.
I think a lot of times people aren't quite sure if I have a customer that just happens to keep coming back to me, is that counted as a recurring revenue stream in your definition, or what do you count as a recurring revenue stream?
I think that's going to go more under loyalty. You can count on them to come in. They're only buying the product from you. If I have a legal issue, I'm always going to go to Tim, because Tim's the guy, or Tim's firm is the guy that handles those issues. So that's more loyalty than is recurring revenue. I would, I think, characterize recurring revenue as when it's predictable. I think that's what's missing in somebody that just happens to show up at your doorstep saying, "Hey, I just got a new XYZ issue that I need you to handle for me, Tim.
And if we jumped all the way back, I know I'm jumping a little off script here, Tracy, but if we look at this from a broader context, this first item, we help, I know you help people sell businesses and buy them as well, and I do as well. This really, if you look at that definition you just described, that loyalty versus really recurring revenue is one of the primary indicators of what the value of what the true value of your business is going to be to a potential buyer. If it's just loyalty, it's going to be a really hard predictor or indicator to figure out what is it I'm buying. If you can really have a true recurring revenue, then there's going to be a lot more, there's going to be a higher multiple on your buy.
Absolutely. That's absolutely the truth. Yep. And if you've got some great contracts that are in place, long-term contracts, that can be helpful, or contracts that recur every year that you've got a nice history for that continue.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
You want to run me through the scenario here, Tim?
Yes.
We'll see if we can get through that.
So the scenario here is to talk about the recurring revenue stream, but Frederico runs an IT service company that helps small businesses with all their IT needs. They only get called in when there's problems, which makes their cash flow really up and down. How can they create a recurring revenue stream?
Well, I think the first step is to take a look at the IT service company and what market they're in, who they're servicing as customers. That could be, I think, like a school. It can be medical practices. It can be just small businesses, just general small business. So I think it's important to understand who their customer is and what their customer is looking for. Second, I think, a lot of IT companies have moved into the MSP model. That's a managed service provider model. And what that is a flat monthly fee, and you get a bundle of services for those every single month. And some months you might use them a lot. Next month you might not use them at all. But what it gives the small business, the IT company, consistent cash flow, because you're not getting called in when there's just an emergency situation that's going on. As a business owner, I get to know what my fees are going to be every month. I can budget for those, and I know what I'm getting for those. Now, there might be a one-off that's not included in that service agreement, but certainly most of your needs should be in there, so you have a predictable outflow too, which is just as important as a predictable inflow when you're managing your business. I think the other thing to look at, you might be able to have different service levels within this IT company. You might be able to say, hey, if you want a 1 to 2 day turnaround or on your question, it might be a really low price point. The second level might be something that says you get it within 24 hours, or you can call me anytime between the hours of 9 to 5. If you have a business that's really dependent on IT, let's say you're an emergency room in a hospital and you really need 24/7 service, then maybe you offer them the third level, which might be 24/7 on call. Whenever you have a question, we're there for you, and you can charge a premium for that service. So that's 3 ways to do it. Service wise, I think that there are some other products that you can couple with an IT service company. It might be marketing affiliate marketing sorts of programs where you can offer Office 365. That's pretty typical. They go ahead and manage that. It's not really their product. It's Office 365. Microsoft is doing that, but they're making about $5 or $6 per subscription that's in there. So they make a little bit of money from that. That'll happen every month. They might have something, some apps. Maybe there's an education or a mind, a group that you can belong to, a learning platform that they can do. So it's one to many, kind of like this, Tim. Let's say if you're offering a program like this every single month, and there's a lot of good content in here. Certainly, there's a lot of value in here, but you could offer it for $10 a month for anybody that wants to subscribe to it. They could get worksheets, actually get one-to-one help. You could kind of give them the next level up, depending on what the price point is. So you could do the same thing with an IT company, depending on, again, what their service, who their market is. Does that make sense?
No, it does. And I really like that. One of the things that we probably won't have a lot of time to go into, but when you create that recurring, or maybe we call it consistent revenue stream, one of the hardest things I've seen for small businesses is when, like this IT company, if they're only putting out fires, the problem is their work really goes ebb and flow, which means on the flow, they may not have enough staff to actually facilitate the need of the customer at that time, because if you have 2 customers hit at the same time, that's a problem. But when you can create that recurring revenue, it not only helps you from a sell point, but it also helps you to have the right staffing so that you can actually facilitate the needs of the clients when they have their needs, or you can be more proactive in helping them, take care of their needs before they become huge catastrophic issues. So that's
absolutely.
cool.
Yeah, I can absolutely help their business. That's a good point.
Yeah, no, I love your input. That's helpful. So next step, systemizing your process. Tell us a little bit more about this.
Okay. Let's talk about the business owner inside of the business. And a lot of businesses just kind of start, right? You have an entrepreneurial seizure, and you say one day, you know what? I'm tired of paying my boss X, Y, Z. I'm going to start my own law firm, or I'm going to start my own accounting firm, or I'm going to start my own contracting firm. That guy's making all the money. So you start a business, and you're just running from job to job. You don't know if you're making money or not. And so your systems are really sort of a mess. You don't really have a good foundation to run your business. So as a consequence, you're involved in the business, and this is one of the things that you can do to get out of it, and to I'm going to call it later. We're going to talk about decoupling yourself from the business. But
Yeah,
if you've got systemized processes and everybody can see what they are, everybody can follow them, so you get consistent results every single time.
yeah,
There's always going to be something that pops up. Business is dynamic, sure. But if you can take care of 95% of it within a process, you know how you're going to serve your clients, you know how you're going to get recurring revenue, how you're going to onboard clients, how you're going to market, what your sales process looks like. It gives you an opportunity to leverage your time and leverage team members and staff as well.
yeah,
And when a business owner, somebody's coming in and wants to buy your business, if they can see that all your processes are already laid out in a, not a dusty old book, but something that lives and breathes and changes as your business changes and is up to date, again, your business is just going to be worth so much more to
yeah,
that private equity firm, or that, rich guy that just wants to buy your business and expand it, whatever
yeah.
the
And
case may be.
I think a lot of people that I've seen, when you say systemize, I think a lot of people think, oh, I need to insert technology. And I think that's not a wrong thought, but it also isn't the answer. If from everything I've seen, it's not. If you just insert technology into a system that, or into a process that doesn't exist, it's not going to help solve the problem. It really actually complicates it. Have you
Yeah,
seen
you're
that
going
as
to make a
well?
mess.
Yeah,
Yeah, you're going to make a mess. You got to have a good system to begin with. I love technology, but only when you're ready for it, or if it's the right solution.
yeah.
It's for the job for sure.
So oftentimes what I've seen, and I don't do the business coaching side, but I'm assuming you do this, which is you actually have to set up the system first, or have the systems in place, and then you know what technology actually will help to facilitate what you're actually trying to accomplish, and further systematizing your business. So yeah, it's an interesting
I
thought.
agree, but a lot of times they're just, you're walking into something that's already been created, and you've got a hodgepodge of technology that doesn't talk to each other, and they've got
Yeah,
different databases, and how do you share that database or that technology amongst each other? So integration Zapier helps a little bit, but it
yeah,
doesn't do the entire job of doing that. So yeah, I think what's really important and I think is to go through your whole business cycle. So
hmm,
what's your marketing look like? Where do you get your lead gen? What's the sales process look like? How does delivery go? How do you get paid? How do you onboard your customers? How do you repeat that process over again? And just kind of lay that out, and just 5 to 10 little bubbles or big bubbles, how that process is going to go.
yeah.
And from there, you can start diving a little bit deeper and mapping out the process for each one of them.
No, that's great. Well, we're going to jump into a scenario real quick and just kind of walk through one of the ways we can systemize your business. So Jeff runs an online retail company selling clothes. He has a warehouse that he uses to store and ship items. Jeff has 5 employees. How should Jeff get started in systemizing his process?
I think, again, it makes sense for him first to start out with that process, to know what he's got. So how does he get his leads? Where does he advertise? Does he
Yeah,
advertise on Facebook? Is it on Instagram? Is it in a newspaper? Where are we getting those leads from? And how does that work? If you're doing social media, how often are you doing any posting or following up with those folks? How often do those offers happen? And where does that kind of line up? From there, you're going to go into lead gen. And what happens once you get a lead? Who takes care of it? What's the sales process look like? And if it's a brick and mortar store like he has, somebody walks into the store to begin with. Maybe it's not an online order, but you'd have that process as well.
yeah,
Somebody walks in, how are they going to get greeted? Who's going to talk to them? What's that experience look like? And sales fulfillment is probably pretty easy. You just put it in a bag, right? Put it in a box or something like that. And the next process might be collecting a credit card from that, and then making sure that you get his email address so you can follow up and do some more marketing, whatever that onboarding looks like, and whatever you need to do to kind of get them to come back. So what I start with is knowing what that big process is.
Yeah.
And then the next step would be partnering with somebody else on your team, not the business owner, but somebody else that's going to record what those processes are. And you just want an overview of each one of those. So you might have 3 people that are involved in the marketing. So you'd interview each one of the 3 people and say, hey, you're in charge of the Facebook marketing. How does this go? And what's the next process look like? So you go ahead and record how those things are posted, if that's what you're doing and what the timeline looks like. A lot of times, people will use Loom or a recording that you can do, a screen recording tool, and then you can go ahead and archive those in a place where everybody has access to them.
Yeah. One thing I like that you talked about earlier with me was the reason you don't talk to the business owner when you're asking or writing down these processes is because really you need to know what's actually happening and not what the business owner thinks should happen or is happening. So you need to talk to the people actually doing the job to see what's actually happening, to understand where you're at and what needs to be done moving forward.
That's exactly right. And the next thing would be is that the business owner probably isn't the best person to do this because they're already too busy.
Mm-hmm.
If you give this in the hands of a business owner, Tim, if I told you to go do this and interview everybody on your team, how long do you think it would take before you got it done?
Quite a while.
No, seriously, like 6 months, right? Or more, or if ever, because you've got a lot of stuff to do.
If the priority isn't high, then it's gonna take,
And the priority that's going to be high is something that's walking into your desk right now, walking across your desk right now. It says, hey, somebody just filed a lawsuit against my client. And you're going, oh crap, now how do I deal with that? Or you got a new contract to review and you're looking at this going, I'm not really going to do the systematizing thing right now. I'll do that on Saturday. And then you got something going on Saturday. Maybe you're going to go up to Sedona, right? And go, go hiking, or you want to watch a ball game with your kid, or go play whatever, play tennis with your wife. You've got a lot of stuff in the way, but if you assign it to somebody else and it's a 2-person process, so you got the interviewer and then you've got the person that's actually telling them what they're doing now. And that's the other piece. Make sure that you're really getting just how it lives right now, not necessarily how you want it to be.
That's great. That's great. And it kind of flows into the next part is decoupling yourself from the business. This is the business owner. What does that mean, decouple yourself from the business as a business owner?
Decoupling, I think that has to do with trailering in an RV or something. I know I'm the one that put it together, use that word, but really it's making sure that the business owner can take time away from the business without being involved in it 60, 70 hours a week. And that's what we see a lot. So it's life, making them have a better life or life work balance. Everybody hears about that, but what does that really mean? It also makes the company more valuable. If the business isn't dependent on Tim or on Tracy to get things done, and it can get done regardless of what happens, and where the leads come from and who's servicing those leads, then the business is a lot more valuable to that private equity firm or just a local guy who wants to expand into your market. So it's making, and the litmus test, I think, is if you can be gone, completely gone. I don't mean that you're on your cell phone or you're taking your laptop with you on vacation. You can be gone for 4 weeks and you come back and the business didn't die. It's still bringing in leads. It's still servicing your customers. It's still onboarding everybody, just like we laid out in systematizing your business. If that stuff is still happening, probably if you're not here, Tim, it's probably happening better than when you were here. Because we're not getting in the way. We're not meddling with it. We're not fussing with the business. So I think that's the litmus test for me. So if somebody can be gone out of the country in some remote place in Bulgaria that has, I don't know if it's remote or not, I've just never been there. If it has no cell phone service, no internet, no nothing, is the business still good to go? Then you know you've been successful.
Well, I love that thought. And this is where a lot of people say, I'll do that. But first I got to get to a certain point. And so I love this question that you propose here. When do you start decoupling yourself from your business as a small business owner?
Like 2 weeks ago, as soon as you can, because again, you're building value and you're building those processes so it can happen over and over again. It takes time to do that. So I think that the sooner you can do it, the better off you'll be. The sooner you'll be better off. So you don't want to wait. I love that too. When should you start? It's kind of a stupid question, I think. But
kind of the same question as when should you plant the tree, right? That's today or 20 years ago, whichever one's first.
Whenever you want the shade, I guess.
Let's jump into a scenario with this.
Right.
So Carla runs a consulting company. She started 2 years ago. She's beginning to grow, but everyone that hires her company wants her and not others that she has hired. what is the best way for her to start decoupling herself from her business?
Well, I guess, you take a look at that systemization that you did before and see if she's doing everything. I mean, you can do an org chart. An org chart should be based on what the positions are, not who, right? You don't want to put a who in there. It's what the position is. And if you see that Carla all over that dang thing, then we got a problem, obviously. So how do you start decoupling her from the business? I think you've got to look at who their customers are, again, what market she operates in. Always look at that stuff first. But secondarily, you got to look at her team. Is she trusting her team? Oh gosh, I hate to talk about this, but this is so important. Most small business owners or most business owners start a business and continue to grow it. And if they're successful, they kind of like being the problem solver. I mean, Tim, if you do a great job and I come to you and we solve this problem and I win the case, or I get this great contract and we get this thing resolved and I make a lot of money from selling my business, Tim, you're the freaking hero, right? I'm loving you. I'm loving you. And so you've got to be able to take off that cape and say, hey, look, it's not just me. I'm going to give this cape to a team member that's really super competent, knows how to do this better than I do. So I think you have to have trained people, and you have to be willing to get your ego out of the way if you want to build a business. The trade-off is get your ego out of the way. And then you can actually grow a business that makes a lot more money, is more valuable, which is more important to you. You got to make that decision. And sometimes it's great. If you want to have a lifestyle business and you want to be the hero all the time, cool, go that way. It's not a bad decision. It's just a different decision than creating a lot of value in your company. Because if you go away, there's nothing to sell.
I've actually had that exact scenario play out over the last year. I've seen that where somebody, we were looking at an opportunity for them to increase or expand their capacity and have other people come in and really push them away from being the everything in the business. And the result was they didn't like that. They actually preferred it the other way. And like you said, almost to the point of it was an identity. And I'll say this, Tracy, in the last year, this is a lot what I've done. I've brought in a lot of people to bring and help run the organization on the legal side as well. And I bet you run into this a lot. People do have an identity crisis. You're not a producer anymore a lot of times like you are identified or that you've identified as. And so you have to actually fit a different role than you used to fit. And it has to come with a little bit of change in your own personal approach to life. And so it's a funny development. It sounds really simple in theory. Hey, just decouple yourself. But as you said, it's almost not just from a business side, but almost from an emotional side. There's a whole transition that has to take place.
Yeah, I agreed. I think, we're emotional beings, and we make emotions, make emotional decisions all the time. And we use our logic to justify those emotional decisions about the way we're doing things. So what we're talking about is, and you've got to have enough motivation to get there. So if your motivation is you want to build a business that has more value in it, you've got to get out of the business. And it's really becoming, I like a different way of saying is you're moving from owner operator to CEO. You're the designer of the business, not the doer of the business.
Yeah, that's a great point. All right, we're going to jump into the next one. Focus on brand loyalty and reputation. Walk me through this a little bit. What does that mean?
All right. First of all, here's my question, Tim. Who is the CEO or founder of Nike?
I knew you were going to ask that. I do not know the answer, actually.
I warned you. I told you ahead of time I was going to ask you that. Sort of, right? I alluded to it.
You should have. Yep, I should have.
You don't know?
I don't know.
All right. Okay.
Are you going to give us the answer? This is a cliffhanger.
We'll give it to you at the end. How's that? Okay. I'll tell you who it is at the end. And you could Google it if you want to. I don't know how many people are on the call, but he's he wrote a book called Shoe Dog.
Okay.
All right. He's been in town several times. I mean, he plays against the Devils all the time. What school is he associated with?
Oh, geez, I don't know the answer to these. I'm going to fail on this question too.
Well, I'm going to cheat a little bit because I went to the University of Oregon and that's where he's from. So that's why I know. I call him Uncle Phil.
Okay.
Phil Knight.
Phil Knight. Okay. Good to know.
Okay. That's his name.
Okay.
How much money is he worth, Tim? I'm sure you'd like to sell that business for him.
Oh, gee, yeah, I would guess a couple $1 billion is my guess.
At least, yeah. Yep. A lot of. There's a lot of zeros. A lot of zeros there.
That's great. So how do you? I mean, that's a great example, right? Nike is a great example of brand loyalty and reputation. How does that work in a small business setting? How do you create that?
Okay, big question. This is a whole seminar on its own, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, I mean, each one of these questions, a whole little webinar. So how do you create brand identity? I think it has to go back to what your UCD is, or your unique core differentiator is. What are you best at? Identify what you're best at. If you're great at doing business law, then stick to business law, and you don't want to do family law, then don't do family law, because you you kind of suck at it. I don't know whether you do or not, but maybe that's something you don't do great.
We don't do it. Yeah, we don't do family law, so you're good.
I kind of knew that ahead of time. I've looked at the website, so I kind of knew that.
You're good.
So yeah, you take a look at what you're really good at, define what that is, and then build your brand around that and how you do it differently for everybody else. You can't always just say, for instance, I hear this a lot. Well, we provide great service, great value, and we do it cheap. It's not a brand identity, but everybody says it. I mean, if you look at a lot of ads out there, that doesn't define a lot of companies. Doesn't define Nike, doesn't define Apple.
Yeah.
It might define Walmart.
Yeah.
But not those other two. So how are you different from the marketplace, and what are you going to capitalize and create your identity around that? Maybe it is great service. And for that IT company that we were talking about earlier, maybe it's 24/7. We've got a trained IT tech that's on the phone, available 24/7 to help you serve your emergency room facility, or whatever it is that you need 24/7. That becomes who you are. And so you build your identity, and your marketing aligns with that identity and with that service item. Does that make sense?
No,
and then brand loyalty is just doing what you say you're going to do, and then doing it over and over again, making sure that your presentation that you always give it is in alignment with that. So making sure that what you say in your marketing materials, or in your blogs, or in your Facebook social media feeds, they're all in alignment with what that identity is. So there's no brand confusion about what's happening.
I'll say this too, Tracy. Yeah. Recently, I've actually gone through this process. I've hired a brand cohesion, basically consultant, and he's gone through, and even down to the way you present your logo, what it looks like, how you use color schemes throughout, all these little things. But then even it goes to a more comprehensive approach, like you're saying, on the top end, with how you present. If you have a guarantee, and if you follow through on those guarantees, and what your touch points are for customers, and all those things, they really do matter. Everything has to have some cohesion to what you're actually identifying. And you use the word, and I like this, in our first conversation almost probably a year ago now, you used this term, and I've never forgot it: core differentiator.
Yeah.
And it's that exact thing that becomes your identity. And that's really the hardest thing. One of the hardest things I've seen for business owners to identify, because you see what most business owners are focused on is just, hey, I'm gonna do good work, and I'm gonna do it better than other people, hopefully, and offer it for cheaper. And like you said, that's really not your brand. That's not a brand identifier. It doesn't give any indication of who you are, or what you provide, or why it's unique.
You can't offer a premium for that. I mean, you can't get more out of it. So I think that's in. I was talking to Lisa, our marketing person at our end, the other day, and we were talking a bit about that, and we were creating some content. And one of the unique core differentiators really can be communication style.
Yeah.
Talking to the business owner or whomever, your customer, in a way that makes sense to them. They don't want to go through the tax code. They don't want to go through that law stuff. I saw those little numbers and code and sections down there. I don't want to know that. Just tell me that I can't use anything on a romper, underwear, or swimsuits that say Washington Commander on there.
Exactly.
Right. Exactly. So that's what I need to know. And so you've got to communicate in our business, so that they get it. They're too busy. They don't have time. That's why hire us, is to be able to talk to them in a way that makes sense to them, that says we understand that. But that can be a differentiator. It doesn't have to be something that says we offer this that nobody else offers, or we've got this CRM that will communicate with you. It's on our lap, in your phone, and you can shoot us an email anytime you want, or communicate with us. I mean, those are cool things, and we were talking about tech before, but I think it's all of it together.
Yeah, I agree. That's awesome. Well, let's jump into the scenario. I know we've got a couple other points we want to make sure to hit, but let's jump into the scenario real quick. Jeremiah runs a CRM software company for commercial real estate, companies. He's grown quickly, but has not had a chance to dial in his brand. What types of things should Jeremiah be doing to create brand loyalty and reputation?
Again, go back into his core product or his core customers, commercial real estate companies.
Yeah.
So I think, how does he serve those guys differently from everybody else, coming up with that unique core differentiator that sets him apart from all the other commercial real estate companies? And it might be something all the other commercial real estate companies are doing. They're just not talking about it, like the guarantee you mentioned earlier. And then from there, create your brand and how you're going to communicate that to your customer, and then just doing it consistently. Decoupling yourself from the business, that means sharing that brand with your team and sharing that thought process and your company's why, if you're familiar with that work. So
I think this question to me, that bottom question, really got back to the systemizing. A lot of times what I see with business owners is their brand is themselves a lot of times, which means, hey, I am the only one that can provide the service in this very unique way. And so we get back to, well, if that's truly the case, what is it that you're doing that's unique? And how do you make that a system so that it can be followed by your team, so that you're not the only one having to provide this service at all times?
right.
So like you say, it all comes together. I love how you've got these points laid out. Okay, increasing profitability and cash flow. Talk me through this one.
Again, an all-day kind of situation.
Yes, it is.
Really, so what we start with, and I think what's really important, is that you've got good, and this is going to flow to the last point, good record keeping. So you want to be able to take a look at your profit margins or your service margins. And that needs to be product by product, not necessarily everything all together. If I sell 15 different things, I want to know where am I making my money and what I need to throw gasoline on to make work better for me. And I think, you can do some experimentation there too. We're talking about brand loyalty, maybe some A/B testing in your marketing to see what's working and not. And if you've got your profit centers and margins for each one of your products or services, you can see that readily what's working and not working. So that makes a lot of sense to take a look at those. We had a client a number of years ago, as an example. I know you've got another one in here, and I don't want to take up a lot of time, but they came to us and they're growing 40% a year, and they're a multi-million-dollar company. They're growing 40, which is phenomenal, right? I mean, that's phenomenal. That's great. We love that stuff. But their net income wasn't changing. Oh, we got a problem. You're having trouble making payroll. Oh, we got a problem. Where's the problem? And the problem was in their pricing. They were selling more of them, but they were only making, gross margin of 2% on them, those particular items. So what we did what we did together, really, because that's what it is. It's coaching. And I didn't mention that earlier, but really the focus is on the client. We're Yoda. You can be Luke Skywalker. And we're trying to make you a Luke Skywalker. So what we did with the client, we tried to make him a Luke Skywalker. Say, hey man, what do you have to do in order to get more profit? Let's take a look at our pricing. So we took a look at our pricing, our production costs, our gross margins, and decided we weren't going to do those things anymore. And so we didn't. And we moved into other lines, and they were within 12 months super profitable, just because they stopped doing that stuff. So sometimes it's not doing stuff. It's not doing stuff.
It's the opposite.
Right? I mean, because every time you say yes to something, yes, I'm going to sell this stuff, you're saying no to another. You're saying no to another opportunity that you don't have time for. So it's important to look at each one of your product lines or service lines to make sure that you're profitable in each one of them, to know what to say no to.
And you know what? I'm actually going to jump through this next scenario and go to the final point, because I think these increasing profitability and cash flow goes together really well with this point, which is maintaining clear, concise, and accurate financials. In my experience, unless you have this point, you really can't do the last point very well. If you can't analyze and review which products or services are actually being financially good for you or not, what the profit margins are, or maybe where expenses are high on certain products, then you don't really have an opportunity to increase your overall revenues and profitability.
Yeah, and I would agree. I think if you have good financials and clear financials, and I'd add one more to that, and I'd say timely. You've got to have stuff pretty much up to date, and then you can start doing some projections. This is just foundational. If you don't have historical stuff in line so you can see what's going on, and you don't have it timely, you're not going to get to the fun stuff, to do projections or to do what ifs or profit projections and all those things that you can do to make your business more profitable. Chances are, if you've got bad bookkeeping, you're not keeping track of other things either. Are you looking at your Google Analytics? What does your close rate look like, and what's your lead gen looks like basic against your spend? Are you taking a look at that stuff too? Or maybe they're just marketing and they're taking care of that and not taking care of the bookkeeping. But I mean, numbers can be fun because it leads to greater profits, but you got to look at why you're doing them, not just crunching numbers just to crunch numbers because it's fun. Otherwise, you'll end up as an accountant. So you don't want that. And really, that's where the fun is, right?
Yeah,
For us. I mean, I can
it
do
is.
tax returns and we've done them for years and years and years. Where the fun is being able to take these businesses and watch them grow and
Yeah.
watch them become successful and watch it change people's lives and change the community. It's really gratifying and super cool that we can see that happen.
I love that. Let's go through this last situation, and then I do have a very generic question I want to ask you after that, just and get your candid response. So I'll prompt you like that. But Eliza
So we're
runs
after, I'll set you up with an appointment for that, Tim. Afternoons or mornings better for you.
Eliza runs a skincare company that offers facials and other skincare services along with a long list of products. Eliza's employees receive payments by credit card, check, and cash. They also receive tips, so Eliza needs help knowing how to clean up her financials.
Yeah, she does. I agree with you, Tim.
That wasn't the hard question either. So this is just the easy one, the scenario.
So you want to know how she needs to do that? Knowing how to clean them?
Well, and I think this is where a lot of business owners start, right? There's every level in my what I've seen of, hey, we do track certain things or not, but let's say this person is just very, very new to the business world. What are the first steps, she should take, or how does she start the process here?
Well, I guess she has to determine whether she wants to do it and she has, the time and the skill to be able to do it, or she needs to find some help doing it, whether it's internally somebody on her team, bringing somebody in, maybe she outsources part of it, but she needs to get an understanding, of what she wants to do and where her time is best spent. Most of the time, business owners shouldn't be spend time, logging entries in their checkbook. Really should outsource that to somebody else or have somebody else on their team do that. But I think you start with kind of like what we talked about earlier with the business processes and systematizing your business. Where are, how are we getting paid? How are we going to track that stuff? Do we have 15 different payments? Do I have PayPal? Do I have Shopify? Do I have 3 credit cards, merchant accounts? How is that happening? How can we simplify the process to make it easier? And then we're accepting checks and cash. So it must have a brick and mortar store too, I'm assuming, in order to do that. Not only a lot of people taking checks. So get an idea of where the transactions are coming from. And there's so many, we talked about tech earlier, and there's so many tools out there that can help streamline this process. And a lot of our clients do use QuickBooks Online, QBO. It's pretty prevalent. You can use QuickBooks Desktop as well, but you can do bank feeds and all kinds of things where those transactions flow right into your QuickBooks file. Sometimes that can make a bit of a mess because sometimes they'll duplicate it. So it helps if you have somebody that has a little bit of experience helping you set those things up. Yeah. So that way you don't have to go back and redo things, or you just get bogged down with the day-to-day and it doesn't happen. So that's where it needs to be given to somebody else to make sure it happens, whether accountability or whatever. Yeah. Does that answer the question, Tim, or do you want more than that?
No, it does. I think the overall question, I'll jump right into this last question. The reason I prompt you this way is because I think a lot of times the business owners I meet with, and I don't do the coaching side, but I've seen this be the response to even on the legal, or when I do start talking about these things, is the immediate feeling of being overwhelmed, right? As a business owner, a lot of times that you think, I cannot take on one more thing. And when Tracy's saying all these things, I know these are things I should do, but man, I'm feeling overwhelmed. When you have somebody walk into your office and they feel this, or they express that to you, what is your response? What's the best way for them to start this process without just getting completely overwhelmed?
Well, so I think they need help. They need some guidance. Yeah. And if that's what you're fishing for, I mean, that's what they need. I'm trying to be nice and say it could be somebody internal, but if it was somebody internal, or if they had the capability of doing it, it would probably be done most of the time. And it's great information. We already talked about how we need that information previously. So they need it to run their business. It's just not what they're interested in. Then give it to somebody else to do those things that really does love doing it. I mean, some people love going through and answering emails. Some people love balancing checkbooks. Some people love reconciling accounts and setting up quick. Believe it or not, a lot of business owners find that hard to believe, but there are people out there that actually thrive on doing that stuff. There are people that love digging into the law too, and finding out these little nuances about Colorado and non-competes and all this stuff that could get you into trouble.
Yeah.
So it's so valuable to do that up front rather than later on after after you've got a mess, or after somebody's filing a lawsuit against you because of some violation you've had in Colorado, and you didn't even know you were doing business in Colorado, but you had a few sales there, and all of a sudden you're in trouble.
Yeah.
So, if you want to build a business that that becomes more valuable, that cash flows, you have to do some things right. And we're not in business, you and I or anybody else, just to take up space. There's a purpose for us being here. We can certainly help clients get to where they want to go. I just think they need help and leverage technology. It doesn't have to be hard. I think that if you get the right help to begin with and build those foundational steps to begin with, it's going to be a lot easier as you move forward to make sure that you've got the information that you need to be able to thrive and grow and become more valuable.
I agree. And that's one of those things that I've learned in my several years now running my own business is I really do have some things I really excel in, and there's other things that I don't. And I think that's I know that's every business owner. And so just like you were talking through these points here, this is exactly what your company does. It helps business owners both identify. One of the problems that I see most business owners face, that myself, what you don't know, right? And so one of the things that the biggest hurdles sometimes are the things that you don't even know that you should be doing, but you should be doing. And so getting in contact with somebody like Tracy just helps you identify first the things you don't know that you should be doing. And secondly, I think the biggest thing that hurdles for most business owners that I've seen is, man, who can execute on this? I don't know. For instance, I know a lot of people that say, hey, Tracy, you said there's a lot of bookkeepers that like to do these things. Who can you point me in the right direction, right? And that's where having you as a resource when you come in and offer this advice and service, not only from an experience and understanding standpoint, but from a resource standpoint, having the connections that you have, that can really open up a lot of opportunities for people. So I want to make sure all business owners that get an opportunity to hear this understand that, yeah, it may be overwhelming, but there's a really great resource on this webinar, and that's Tracy, to really walk through and make sure that not only do you understand what you should be doing, but secondly, if you need direction on any of these items, what should be done or who is the good resource to do it, Tracy can help, and obviously have my own abilities to help in certain ways through these things. So we do have additional materials. If you'd like to get those, we'd be happy to share them with you. Send us an email to theintake@counsel.com. We'd love to share any additional information. If you have questions, you can also send those there. You also have Tracy's email address right here. So intake@counsel, Cobb CPA. Those are the two email addresses that you can utilize. I jumped over this, but if you have a referral for my team, here's the best way to do it. We love helping referrals. It's a big part of who we service, is primarily referral-based companies. So we take really good care of referrals and make sure that they get the best service possible. So Tracy, really appreciate you coming on today. Great information, 6 ways that we can increase our business's value. The way we advertise too is from 2 people who have actually done it. And that's exactly true. It's something that we actually live by. This is not something that's just taught or professed, but I learned a lot today from you, Tracy. So I'm excited to continue to learn and grow and see the good things that you do. Appreciate you being on today.
Thanks, Tim. Appreciate it. It was a lot of fun. I enjoyed it a lot.
Thank you, Tracy. Have a good rest of your day.
Thanks, you too. Bye-bye.
All right.